All right, this is a demonstration of what I like to call plantable produce. You'd be surprised how many items in the produce section actually have intact root systems or the ability by various means to propagate themselves because they're still alive and they still have viable means to replicate. So most produce, I would say, is not viable in that way, but if you know what to look for, it's basically intact root systems or tubers that maybe don't show any roots, but most of them, in my experience, sweet potatoes, various types of potatoes, they will sprout eyes and they will grow vines or propagate laterally in various manners. So there is some claims that chemicals are used to inhibit the growth of some of these plantables, but in my experience, even if there is a bit of a delay, that they will eventually sprout if they're in the right conditions. So what I've got here is examples is some sweet potatoes, some leeks, some garlic, and some green onion. Those are, in my experience, some of the most easy or some of the easiest to propagate, but you can look at almost anything and that has a full root, like beets, radishes. There's so many others, and then if you get into more exotic ethnic food stores, then the sky's the limit, and they've got way more. And I'll find taro root and all kinds of other tropical, subtropical species, and really be able to extend this. And relative to the price of a nursery plant, or to the time and effort and cost, I mean, seeds are pretty cheap, but it's really hard to get them established if you don't have a professional nursery. So the idea that you can buy produce from a grocery store, and usually you could buy organic, or you could tell yourself, sometimes the way I do, it'll be organic once I plant it. It's not going to continue to be unless it's genetically modified, which is a concern. But only there aren't that many crops that are genetically modified. It's mainly the more mainstream grain crops that are genetically modified, to my knowledge. And so whatever could have been sprayed on the original thing you're planting, the odds of that chemical persisting across multiple generations is gonna decline. So I'm not that worried about that. But organic is cheap enough for now for a lot of things. So I will work with that as well, conventional and organic. So this pattern here that I am establishing is that I've ordered several bags of each of these items, and I have 4 of these containers, these galvanized containers, these basins. So I'm going to show the footage in a minute, but basically there's a procedure that I go through in order to distribute them, count them out ahead of time and distribute them and prep them so that I can have an equal amount in each of the cans. So here comes the prep action. So I've got this little metal cutting board. If there are actually no trespassing signs that I stitched together there. So I'm chopping these up. That's basically the idea. I'm gonna separate the living roots, harvest the greens so that it has an easier chance to reestablish, and then I have a food product that I can use, and I'm gonna preserve it by doing a salt brine. I'm gonna plant all of those bulbs of the garlic, but here I go with using these nice small folding scissors, and I'm gonna chop up the leeks and these green onions into tiny pieces, and then put them in these quart jars, add some salt and water, and just that alone is going to give me a basic fermentation, a wild fermentation that will preserve it essentially indefinitely. So adding the water and just going to shake it up. After this, you could do it a few different ways, but this has worked fine for me. I spliced this footage in right here from the following day. I wanted to add these glass weights that are going to hold the fermenting vegetables below the water line to make sure that you just don't have, you protect them from mold as much as possible. Otherwise there will tend to be a layer of mold in contact with oxygen above, but this is a good practice to keep them submerged. So back to the night before. This is just after separating the green onions, counting them out so that I can plant them in the right proportion equally across the cans that you saw earlier. This is just opening up. I had three of these bags of sweet potatoes, counting them out, and again getting them ready to be distributed. And then this is the loadout of, those are actually a seed mix that's going to go in as I'm turning up the soil, moving it around. Gives me an opportunity to plant some cover crop microgreens around the plantings of these this plantable produce. And here goes the loadout.